Today's topic is email forensic. I would like to present about how email works between client and servers. Also, some information on headers and a little bit information on spoofing. The first thing that we'll go over is various clients and servers. Let us go and see the servers first. Server responsible for moving and storing email messages. Server primarily tasked with moving email is the SMTP server. This is the workhorse of email. It is responsible for moving any email from point A to point B. POP and IMAP servers are also important. They are mostly there to manage mailboxes. So when you connect to send email, it is via SMTP server, and when you connect to retrieve email, it is either a POP or IMAP server. Now, POP and IMAP server are essentially the same thing, but one is more robust. IMAP is newer and more advanced than POP. POP is the older version. Some of the functionality that IMAP has, as far as clients go, they are responsible for being the originator and the endpoint of email. There are a lot of different email clients that I'm sure you all are familiar with, but we'll focus a little bit on Outlook Express because it's available to anyone who has a Windows PC. It comes with Internet Explorer. We will also take a look at Thunderbird a little. Thunderbird is a free open source alternative email client made by the same people who do Mozilla Firefox. So I picked that one because Firefox is becoming very popular and it's getting a little bit of abstraction as well. There are a lot of other ones. Some of the other ones that are very popular are Outlook that comes with Microsoft Office. Evolution is a pretty popular Linux-based open source email client, so if you have GUI in Linux, you might use that. Eudora is very old email client. It's very popular and recently become free and ad supported. So, the first server we will look at is the main server associated with email delivery on the internet. The SMTP server stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is one of the oldest protocol online and therefore it's very mature. It doesn't change a whole lot. It has its roots in same older protocols. But in 1982, they put RFC 821 down as the original SMTP standard. So, it has not really had a whole heap of development since then. It's largely stayed on the same track. SMTP is a push protocol. What it means here is if you relate it to the way that you transfer a file online, every time we submit our exercises to the URI. We upload a file onto their server. Now this is a secure FTP server, but it's the same sort of concept. Basically, what we're doing is we're connecting to the server and we're handing off the file, we're uploading it, and that's what SMTP does. SMTP finds the server and pushes the email onto that server. So, more specifically, every email client needs an SMTP server associated with it. When you set up your SMTP or rather your email client and it asks you for what your SMTP server is, that's when you decide where it's going to be. If it's through your web host or if it's through the convenience server at Gmail or anything that you put in as SMTP server, that's the server it's going to statistically associated with. So, when you send an email, your client will connect to SMTP server and usually connect on port 25. And when they connect and they are talking, the client uploads the email. Everything including from the to and body of the messages goes onto the web. So, SMTP server then takes the message, passes out the to line and then taking it and knowing the traditional format for the email addresses, it is able to direct the email message. So as example, johndoe@yahoo.com, the SMTP server recognized John Doe is the mailbox and the yahoo.com is. So at this point, the SMTP server recognized the domain and it knows that it is in yahoo.com. We will say it's Comcast that met. So the SMTP server will check yahoo.com just like anything else on the internet against the DNS. DNS will tell the IP address for that domain name, and so the SMTP server then connects to the remote Yahoo SMTP server again on port 25, pretty much in exactly the same way as the client connected to the first SMTP server. Although this is being done dynamically, where the client software was statically set up to communicate with the first SMTP server whenever I had the send email. So, once SMTP server hands off the message to the new SMTP server, we are assuming it is one hop in this example. So, the mail is at yahoo.com. Yahoo.com recognizes that it is at the domain, so the SMTP server recognizes it at this point that it doesn't have to send the message to another SMTP server. At this point that I hand those email off to the mailbox managing server, which is either POP or IMAP server. So, what is POP? POP is the Post Office Protocol. It is the most popular protocol used to deliver messages from a mail server, which basically means you are connecting to a POP server. This POP server takes the mail from the SMTP server and directs it to the appropriate mail file. When you connect to POP server, it will offload that mail file to your client software.
IMAP is another server. It functions in very much the same way as POP. IMAP and POP together make up pretty much the entirety of the mailbox software servers. It can do a few things POP can, which is why it exists. It can manage to hold message a little bit more easily, and it can store them in directories, and it can do a lot of other things. But the important thing to know about IMAP, the reason it exists or is any good at anything, is that it can hold messages for a specific sort of criteria. If you download messages and you want them to be held on the server. It will do that if one the server for 1 month. It can do that if you want to hold the message server until 5 specific people download them. It could do that. It can store them forever in directory. It can do a lot of things that pop can, which makes it a little bit more desirable for sort of a group of, like, if you have 2 or 3 people using the same email box. It's probably the choice of a pop. uh, what happens when the SMTP server hands off the message? Well, it's pretty much as simple as SMTP ends the message to POP or IMAP if that's the server that's being run, and the server will then put the email at the end of the email file and then wait for a connection from the client for that mail file. So, for our example of John Doe, Pop knows where that mail file is, and it will attach that message header, body, and everything to the bottom of the mail file, and it will sit there conceivably forever until somebody the housing and downloads it. When the client connects to the POP or IMAP server, for the case of POP, it will generally just take the file, download the entire contents, and once it's determined that the client has acquired the file, the POP server will just completely expunge the mail file. And it's mostly because POP, being as old as it was, designed to pretty much put the mail in a sequential sort of the first mail that comes in the first node in the list, and each subsequent one is popped down to the bottom. So it really isn't built to dynamically manage the mail. It is not really meant to say hold a mail to any email that came in Thursday, and every Monday, everything Monday through the Wednesday, get rid of. It's not effective at that, but it delivers it quickly, and once it's done, it's expunge the mail file. Any email that should come in after that, we will start a new file mail, and I again subsequent email to that will then be appended to that file IMAPs. It different, it's more complicated. It is more capable of managing any extra email that comes in, and if you want to save the email, it is capable of saving the email little flag. But it, if 1% is downloaded, so that don't have to download again. It's got a lot of option that Pop doesn't, and it's a little bit more capable and probably better for some applications, and then Pop, which is still probably very uh, effective for a single user environment. Mail servers are present in both the mailbox managing software and the client application. Applications will look a little bit at client application mail files, but it's important to realize that mail files are sort of an old concept and aren't really built to be extraordinarily secure. As a result, better, they are pretty much plain text. Most mail software clients or servers take the mail sequentially as it arrives in appended to the file. So when you open up a mail file, say in Notepad, you can pretty much see the order in which they came, and depending on how good the client software is at formatting it, you can probably get a pretty good handle on what's contained in the mail file simply by going through Notepad, and we will look at that a little bit later. So in this section we are going to break down and see what information is to be found in the email header. The large part of email forensic is concerning the headers. It has most of the tracking information. If it's a reliable email, you have who sent it, what, who it was mean for the time and date, but it was sent, and some of the information about what servers are bounced through. The most information aside from the actual body of the info of the mail is in the header, and pretty much every client that exists, including web-based email, will have the full headers available for you. So really quickly here, I'm going to take a second to show you how to get a few headers on some of the more popular email clients. So you have got Outlook Express. Basically, the methods that you want to do is you want to go to the message and then click on File and Properties, and this is the header right here. And then for Thunderbirds, what you want to do is open up the message, click on View Headers and all the headers, and here you have that. uh, and lastly, Gmail. I want to show you about Gmail has full headers available. If you go to the message, you can have it show the original, and there you have the full header for that and all the other information, including the body of it. So that's the original of the message. So I'm going to point out a few pieces of information that we can get from the header that are very important. The header can be very dense, and not all of the information is particularly helpful, but the very important pieces are from line. There will always be a from line, although it won't always be accurate. There will be a two line. This is the line that indicates who the message is meant for. It is used by SMTP and POP the direct message where it belongs. There will be a lot of the information when the message was sent, when it was received, by whom it was received, if it was forwarded. A lot of that information can be very helpful, and then of course there would be a subject in the body. When we are looking at the entire full source document that contain headers and delimiting.
This is an email, a full message including headers and all formatting information, and it's and it's using Outlook Express. I set that up to send through a Gmail server to a Comcast email address, and I find it easy to appear here to read this from bottom to top, because for this one all of this information was formatted by Outlook. This right here is the message itself formatting information, and the text itself up a little ways is some information. This is the email address I I use. This is the account. I try to scoop the email address, but Outlook used the email address that I was sending to. So that did not so that didn't quite work as maliciously as I was hoping, but you can kind of see some of the information here that you can alter, you can put in just about anything into a client, and it will indicate that to the recipient just to verify degree. This is all information how look put in, but here we have the date, the subject, the email address it was sent to, and the reply to the address is who, depending on the email client that receive it. This might look like the sender, so this might indicate that this person sent it, and that will be a means by which you could fool them. So each of these block, so starting with a receive column, is the method of identifying which server it was bounced to, from where each of these appears to be a little bit different. So the first one, the earliest one is so the first one is the to indicate that this IP address is mine, and I will send to at here from here. So and on this date, so this is the first step, and then we have our next step is that right here. So it was received by this server. Then from this server, and then we have the date that it was received on here. Then the next step was this one, and it was received from this server, which as you can see is same server is by Comcast.net. So this is the ending set, the set of domain that the email was heading to, and as you can see right here, this is the indicate that Comcast.net received it, and then we have it received from this one, which is the same as this by this, which is probably the final ending point where the mailbox was located in that server computer. So there's a lot of information available here, and interesting thing is that if you look at various different receive blocks, they are not all format the same. So it's important to recognize from indicates who sent it by indicates who received it, or there's a certain amount of interpretation that has to be done in this, and it's not always completely clear, but it generally has IP address or domain names, and it usually has timestamps on it. So again, there's a lot of information that can be received or retrieved from header information, but it is extremely standardized. As you can see, okay, right here, as you can see here, I'm going to demonstrate some methods to examine main files. As the first method I want to show you is through access data, which we have used and on for various things class so far, and I took the Thunderbird mailbox sets of file, and I wish is available to you. much under document settings, application and data Thunderbird and profiles. That is pretty easy to find in documents and settings, and you can copy it or you can direct your FTK to look right there, and once you open it you can look up what's inside of it, and it seems to format it pretty well. You have got from information to the information in the message body, the whole header, it's all available. So FTK does a good job of getting you that information. Next, I found a program and I just want to demonstrate really quickly how effective just anything can work. This one doesn't even really claim to support Thunderbird, and it opens it without an issue. And then it can do the same thing for Outlook. For okay, as you can see here, it's got all the information there too, so that one works well. And then aside from potentially just opening the file with the program that they are native to, we can okay, then we can open up the file. This is the Thunderbird file, inbox file, and we can must get all of the information right here for Thunderbird. It's got all of the information must laid out sequentially in flame paths. Okay, now Outlook is not quiet, is easy to read, but it's all pretty much there. The email address and the nets of the email is located in here, but